You know, in this massive race to dominate the AI era, a whole new kind of company is popping up. And listen, they aren't just building the next cool app, they're literally building the foundation of our AI-powered future. So today, we're going to break down the blueprint of these AI architects to really understand what makes them some of the most valuable and, yeah, controversial companies on the planet. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures this quiet revolution that's happening just beneath the surface of the market's crazy headlines. This isn't about the latest shiny gadget. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of how the world's most powerful organizations actually work, how they make decisions, and how they use information. And right at the heart of this massive shift, one name just keeps coming up again and again: Palantir. So, to really get a grip on this new breed of company, we're going to use them as our main case study.
Okay, so to really understand what's going on here, we have to look beyond the day-to-day stock charts. We're talking about a completely new kind of corporate DNA, a business model that's been built from the ground up for a world where AI comes first and data is, without a doubt, the most important asset.
And here's the real engine behind all this. AI isn't some fun little science experiment anymore. For huge companies, for entire governments, it's becoming as essential as electricity. It's the new operational backbone for making smarter, faster decisions, especially when the stakes are incredibly high. All right, let's zoom in and really get inside Palantir's world. To understand their blueprint for success, we kind of have to follow their journey, all the way from being this secretive government contractor to becoming a commercial AI juggernaut. So Palantir's story really kicks off way back in 2003, deep in the world of government intelligence. But the real game changers, the moments that changed everything, were its IPO in 2020, which kind of threw them into the public spotlight, and then bam, this massive explosion in commercial demand for enterprise AI that really started to pick up steam around 2022. Now, while government work is still their bread and butter, the real story here is the incredible growth of their commercial business. This diversification is absolutely key, because it just blows the doors wide open on their potential customer base. It proves their tech isn't just for spies, it's for huge global corporations too. So how do they hang on to these customers? Well, it all comes down to this really powerful idea called high switching costs. See, once a company builds its entire data system and all its daily workflows on Palantir's platform, leaving is like trying to change the foundation of a skyscraper while you're still living in it. It's just incredibly difficult and unbelievably expensive. It creates this protective moat around their business. And that brings us to the absolute core of what they're offering. They're not just selling you a piece of software. They're selling you better, smarter decisions. And for a massive organization trying to solve incredibly complex problems, being able to do that over and over is so much more valuable than just another simple AI tool. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Palantir isn't some total one-off, a unicorn. No, they're actually a perfect example of a new blueprint for success in this AI era. By taking apart their model, we can start to see the common threads that connect them to other big-time tech companies, and you start to see a pattern emerge. Just take a look at this. You put Palantir right next to companies like Grid Dynamics and Atlassian. Now, they all operate in different markets, sure, but they share that same corporate DNA. They all go after big enterprise customers. They all have these really sticky business models that make it super hard for those customers to leave. And, of course, they all bring in that predictable recurring revenue that investors just love. So, let's just boil it all down. The blueprint really has 4 key ingredients. First, you need that predictable revenue, usually from subscriptions. Second, you focus on high-value enterprise clients, not just regular consumers. Third, you build a strong, competitive moat, like those high switching costs, to lock your customers in. And finally, and this is crucial, AI isn't just a feature, it's the very heart of the entire operation. And what's wild is how versatile this blueprint is. You see it in a company like Grid Dynamics, which is kind of like the special forces of AI, building these custom high-end systems for huge corporations. And you also see it in Atlassian, whose software tools are so deeply woven into the tech development process that they've basically become the default operating system for engineering teams everywhere. But with all this excitement, you gotta be careful not to get swept up in the hype, right? So let's put on our investor hat for a second and talk about how to separate the real, sustainable growth stories from the speculative bubbles. This is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, when a whole sector gets this hot and valuations for companies go through the roof, how do you know if you're looking at the next foundational technology or just the next big market fad? It's a real tug of war.
On one hand, you have the unbelievable potential of a technology that is literally reshaping entire industries. But on the other hand, you've got some very real risks. Sky-high valuations, relying too much on just a few big customers, and for companies like Palantir, there's always the threat of government regulation hanging over their head.
Look, at the end of the day, a great story and a powerful trend are a fantastic start. That gets you in the door. But what separates the long-term winners from the flashes in the pan is relentless, consistent execution, day in and day out. So I'll leave you with this to think about. As you look at the entire AI landscape, who do you believe will define the next decade of enterprise AI? The race to build the future is on, and believe me, the architects are just getting started.